Hi everyone, welcome back to Gastronomy Games. Herbs are some of the most common, versatile, and effective ways to add flavor to your dishes. Understanding when and where to use different herbs is a culinary game changer. The first herb we are going to dive into in this ongoing series is basil. We are going to be using grilled peaches with a basil whipped ricotta as a recipe template. Basil evokes thoughts of summer in any dish it's present in, so without any further ado, let's celebrate the last days of summer and get to the kitchen. Basil, nicknamed the king of herbs because of its versatility, is one of the most common herbs available and can be found in gardens across the country. Basil is thought to have originated in India and has been cultivated by people for nearly 5,000 years. Basil belongs to the same family as mint, and like other mint varieties, it is very adaptable to different growing conditions. Today, it's grown in warm climates all over the world. Basil comes in several varietals, but the two most common in supermarkets are either sweet or Genovese basil. Basil is one of the most versatile herbs out there, with a presence in cuisines from all over the world. It works great in savory applications, but can also make for an unexpected kick in desserts, especially ones with fruit. The biggest attractor for basil is that it can be delicate, so it must be stored and handled properly. Firstly, basil is very reactive to temperature change. This means you shouldn't store it in the fridge because the leaves blacken. Additionally, always add it to your dishes at the last minute because the essential oils break down at relatively low temperatures, so it will lose flavor quickly when exposed to heat. Secondly, basil will bruise and lose color and flavor if handled too much, so try to only cut through it once with as light of pressure as possible. A sharp knife is essential when working with basil. Finally, basil leaves will start to wilt pretty quickly after they are taken off the stem, so wait until you are ready to use them to take them off. Now that we've gone over some basil background, let's get to our recipe, starting with making our ricotta. In a heavy bottom saucepan, combine a quart of whole milk with a pint of heavy cream and a teaspoon of salt, and bring that mixture to a simmer on the stove. I'd recommend no higher heat than medium, and don't leave this alone on your stove. It can boil over very quickly once it starts to simmer. This step will help curds form when we add our vinegar, and will give us a creamier finished product when we whip the ricotta. Once it simmers, take it off the heat and stir in 3 tablespoons of white vinegar. Almost immediately you will see it curdle, but wait 5 minutes for all the milk protein to coagulate. Then we are going to line a fine mesh strainer with cheesecloth and strain out the whey for at least an hour. We want to make sure as much liquid is drained out of our ricotta as possible, otherwise it won't whip as nicely. If you are in a rush, you can expedite this process a little bit by cutting your cheesecloth a little bit longer, gathering up all the corners, and squeezing out your cheese like you would squeeze out a sponge. With patience, your cheese will drain just fine on its own, however. While our ricotta drains, we are going to blend our basil flavor base. In a blender, we are going to combine olive oil, garlic, lemon zest, salt, and our basil. I'd recommend adding in half your oil first, and then slowly adding in the rest as it blends. This will ensure you can blend the basil quickly. The longer you run the blender, the higher the chance you'll bruise your basil, losing flavor and turning the mix black. When deciding which olive oil to use, it's important to factor in how much olive oil flavor you want to come through. If you want a strong olive oil flavor, go for extra virgin. If you want just a hint of olive oil flavor, use regular or light olive oil. If you would like somewhere in between, use a virgin olive oil. Our ricotta has thickened, so we are going to add it to a large mixing bowl and whip it with a hand mixer. You can also use the whisk attachment on a KitchenAid. We want to start on the lowest setting and then crank it up to the highest, one interval at a time. If we start at the highest setting, it can cause the finished product to be a bit grainy. After about a minute, when the curds have combined and it's starting to look like a thin cream cheese, add in your basil oil. Don't be concerned if at this point the ricotta looks a bit runny. The fat in the dairy plus the additional fat in the olive oil will thicken the ricotta once it's refrigerated. We are going to continue to whip our ricotta until it is about the consistency of cake batter. This should take about 2 more minutes. Then let it cool and thicken in the fridge. In the meantime, we are going to taste our pine nuts on the stove. In a pan on medium heat, add your pine nuts in the pan and toast until they are golden brown. Don't leave the stove because pine nuts go from untoasted to burned very, very quickly. With all the components of our dish ready, it's time to grill our peaches. Turn your grill on high and close the top for about 5 minutes so it can build up heat. Then simply cut your peaches in half. Lightly oil with a high smoke point oil such as vegetable oil and salt the flesh side. Then place your peaches on their flesh side on your hot grill. Close the lid and allow the peaches to cook for 3 to 4 minutes. Once they've built up a nice char, we want to turn them 90 degrees to get a checker pattern. Then close the grill again for another 3 to 4 minutes. Make sure your peaches are barely ripe. If they are overripe during the second turn, they will start to fall apart on your grill. When they are nicely charred, simply take them off the grill onto a baking sheet. We are then going to serve our peaches with our whipped basil ricotta, our toasted pine nuts, some lemon salt, fresh basil, and high-quality balsamic vinegar. If you don't want to splurge on high-quality balsamic, you can use a store-bought balsamic glaze. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you still have any questions, be sure to leave them in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I can't wait to cook with you all again soon.